Call to order the March 18th Joliet City Pre-Council meeting. Mayor Tom Girani presiding.
Start with roll call. Mayor Girani.
Here.
Councilwoman Barber. Here. Councilman Fisher.
Here.
Councilman Girl.
Here.
Councilman Hugg.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Odekirk.
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman. Here. Councilman Turk.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we've had several items that have been requested to be moved up, but before we do that, we have a presentation by John Quinn from AT&T. AT&T has been a great business partner of the city of Joliet. A fee that the AT&T customers pay helped with the renovation of the council chambers, and in several discussions I've had with John, I've come to find out that AT&T has a major presence in Joliet with its center that's in downtown Joliet and other facilities throughout town. So I invited John to come in and make a brief presentation on AT&T's presence in Joliet and some of the exciting things that AT&T has going on in its business plan. John?
Thank you, Tom. Mayor Girani, City Council members, and City staff. My name is John Quinn. I'm Director of External Affairs with AT&T, and started with Illinois Bell 21 years ago as a temporary employee installing tip and ring. And excitement in the communication industry back then was a second line or perhaps a fax line, and really has grown from there. From there, I managed outside field technicians in the Will County area, and for the last 7 years, I've enjoyed my role as External Affairs Director, where I'm responsible for municipal affairs, community relations, and serve as a liaison on constituent issues. A little bit about AT&T. AT&T is a global company with over 240,000 employees worldwide and with wireless service in 226 countries where AT&T wireless customers can make calls. Nationally, AT&T serves over 3 million small businesses, operates 2,300 retail stores, and covers 90% of the population with mobile broadband. AT&T has been improving the way we communicate for 136 years. Well, let's boil those numbers down to the state level. In the state, there are over 14,000 employees, and we operate 73 company-owned retail stores in Illinois. Locally, AT&T has a physical footprint at 5 buildings throughout Joliet that Tom mentioned. We have our mobility store in the Louis Joliet Mall next to Carson Prairie Scott with over 20 employees. The store is open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Sunday from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. And sales representatives and subject matter experts are on hand to help constituents with all their communications needs. Out west on Theodore Street is our network garage with over 50 employees who are responsible for wireline installation and repair services. We have a small remote central office out on Jefferson that was built to handle growth out west. And in downtown, we have 2 locations, one of which is a central office, and the other is an administration building totaling over 200 employees in downtown Joliet. And with me today are some of the employees from our downtown area, and I'd like to ask them to come to the podium and introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they do for AT&T.
Hello, my name's Pat Saunders. I'm the area manager for construction engineering in this area. I have 13 engineers and one of them with me today, and I'll have 39 years service this year, so I'm available for if you have any questions.
I'm Patty Sund. I am the office manager, and I have 18 IBEW union drafters that supports Pat Saunders engineers. I've been with the company 18 years.
Where do you work out of, Patty?
The 65 Webster building. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Britt Moore. I'm an outside plant engineer. I also work out of 65 Webster. I pretty much handle the outside network from our central office to our customers. And I've been working for the company for 15 years now.
How many people work out of that building?
We have approximately 200 people at 65 West Webster. That's what we work out of.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank them personally for the assistance they provide me. Generally, when issues come up or there's some concerns or a new piece of service is coming in, I call on them quite frequently, and they help me tremendously in navigating some of the waters. But they also are pretty integral in the community service that we provide and help organizations like Big Brothers Big Sisters, Joliet Community Hospice, and United Way of Will County with donating some of their time, treasure, and talent. And we are very proud of the difference that they make in the community. These employees, like Patty, Pat, and Britt, are responsible for building the network that has seen explosive growth, with wireless data traffic increasing 20,000% over the past 5 years. That's 20,000% over our data network alone. And also with internet protocol-based services such as UVerse and high-speed internet growing extremely rapidly. Speaking of UVerse, the city of Joliet was one of the first communities to begin approving permits to allow AT&T to build out our infrastructure and bring choice for video entertainment to the residents. AT&T continues to build more UVerse infrastructure in the city, and in fact has the second highest subscriber rate to the city of Chicago in Illinois. Nationally, AT&T has grown to over 4.5 million UVerse TV subscribers. The communications industry is a very capital-intensive industry and ultra-competitive. In order to meet these consumer demands, AT&T invested about $3.5 billion in our wireless and wireline network from 2009 through 2011 in the state of Illinois. Nationally, AT&T invests about $18 billion to $19 billion nationwide, and has announced that over the next 3 years, we will invest an additional $14 billion in wireless and internet-based technologies. But what I'm most proud of is our commitment to the community. From 2008 through 2011, AT&T and its employees contributed more than $21 million through corporate, employee, and AT&T Foundation giving programs in Illinois. We announced a $350 million nationwide commitment to education through a program called AT&T Aspire. And locally, AT&T has contributed over $200,000 to Joliet Township High School for their Lighthouse Summer Bridge program, and $25,000 to the University of St. Francis for their Merit program. In addition to these contributions, our employees had volunteered to assist with Junior Achievement Job Shadow, which provides the opportunity for students at Joliet Township High School to shadow some of our employees like Britt and Pat and Patty for a half a day to see what they do during the day and to see about the employment world. They also have donated, our employees have donated time and treasure to help local schools with back-to-school projects like stocking backpacks with supplies and shoes. At this time, I'd like to thank you all for this opportunity to provide you with an update on what's happening at AT&T and some of the current initiatives that we have, and would like to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Council? No. Thank you.
Mayor, I have a comment. I got to work with John on with the University of St. Francis. My role there in the Merit program. It's a program where AT&T, without their help of kicking off a scholarship program for multicultural and minority students in Joliet to become teachers, and they are provided, because of AT&T and several other organizations, full ride scholarships at the University of St. Francis to become teachers, and then in turn these students will teach at our Joliet schools, and they will make a commitment to teaching and be leaders in our community. So I want to thank you, John. Without AT&T getting the ball rolling on this, it really helped very, very much as far as confidence of other organizations and other businesses that this was a quality program at the University of St. Francis. So thank you, and we very much appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Ditto, John. Thank you, and thank AT&T for all they do in our city. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, John's very active on the City Center Partnership and the Will County Center for Economic Development Boards. A lot of community involvement from John and his team at the Webster site. And also, we've had quite a few conversations over the last few months about parking issues, traffic issues, as that part of our downtown gets busier with the development of the Joliet Junior College campus expansion project. It'll certainly have an impact on their employees, so we want to make sure we continue to accommodate their 200 employees, so we make their parking options good, and also accommodate the 400 college students that we will see in downtown Joliet in about 2 years. So big thanks to them. And also those of you who are football fans can see John as a referee on the field during the fall season. He wears a black and white striped shirt usually, right? And he actually made the cover of Sports Illustrated 1 year, going back for a Michigan game, I think it was. So he's probably more famous for that. So big thanks to John, great community partner. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we have several other items to be moved up. The first one is 86-13, Council Memo 86-13, and that's 7 items dealing with the Autobahn. I addressed this at the last meeting. We didn't get to it at the Tuesday meeting because of the inclement weather, but same thing that was before you a couple of weeks ago. It's the annexation of 11 acres that the Autobahn is purchasing from CenterPoint, along with some platting issues and giving the team units their own separate PIN numbers. They'll have separate lots for all the team units. Those of you may have seen today's news, I believe it was today's newspaper, excellent article on the team units that have been built there, and the incredible story of Autobahn growing its membership during the worst recession in the last 3 generations. This will be before you tomorrow night. Rod Tonelli is present today on behalf of the ownership group. If you have any questions on the platting or zoning, otherwise this will be on tomorrow night's agenda for a public hearing.
This was reviewed. Any questions come up since then? None? Okay, we'll see you tomorrow night, Ron.
Next item.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I do have a question. The surrounding neighborhoods, do they ever have a neighborhood meeting with them to keep them posted about what's going on? Because we had talked about that before with CenterPoint and the UP going back in there.
I think, yeah, the only remaining neighbors are probably 6 or 7 on Vetter, and then probably 2 or 3 or 4 on Brandon, who chose not to sell to CenterPoint. So there's probably only about 10 or so houses that are still occupied, still out there. I don't think that there's been a neighborhood meeting to talk about this. I think Autobahn's been a great neighbor. They've always been very inclusive of their residential neighbors, but, you know, I can follow
There
up.
is that subdivision, though, just to the east of that.
Oh, there are 3 subdivisions the
53.
city approved back in 2005 and 6. Yeah, I don't think that this
I
has
don't
been
think they'll have
reviewed
a
with
problem
them.
with it, I just like them to be notified.
Yeah, we did our standard notification for this, but we can follow up. I don't think they have much of an active HOA. It's not a very populated subdivision. It's probably about 10% built out, but we can check, the staff can check between now and tomorrow night and see if we can make contact with somebody there. This really doesn't change much of the action that's going on at the Autobahn, other than adding 24 team units, which is actually a very positive thing. These are very expensive units. They had good assessed valuation to the city, so good positive step.
Oh, no, this is a great project. I have no problem with the project. It was just keeping the neighbors
I'll check
informed.
with them, yeah. I think that they, I think the Autobahn does a pretty good job of staying in contact with its neighbors, but we'll double check and report back tomorrow.
Thank you.
This is this is lots for more houses. It's not going to add any more noise or anything. It's just a matter of building more houses.
It's 24 team units that'll be built on the backstretch, which is the very western edge of the property. It's property that CenterPoint bought probably 6 years ago or so, 5 or 6 years ago, when we did the original approval. And through some sales that have taken place, Autobahn's been able to secure it, and they'll be able to add these 24 team units to their project.
Thank you.
Next item, 115-13, 115-13, and that's a resolution authorizing an economic development incentive for construction of a proposed cold storage warehouse. This is on what we've called the Duke property at Cherry Hill Road and New Lenox Road. What's being proposed is a 217,000 square foot freezer warehouse. It's being developed by a company that will be called Joliet Cold Storage LLC. It's an affiliate of Supreme Lobster, and they have other facilities such as this, dealing with frozen foods and the distribution of them from Bolingbrook and Wilmington. The south half of the land would be developed by Joliet Cold Storage. The other half would be reserved for future expansion by the company or another development. The proposed investment is $28 million. At least 30 new employees will be hired with an annual compensation package exceeding $1 million. The entry-level positions will be paid $15 to $16 an hour with benefits. No temp help employees would be there on a regular basis, only upon needed as far as seasonal demand. Some of the jobs will pay up to $55,000 per year. All of the construction that will be done by local contractors using the local union trades for the construction job. We were competing with other towns in Will County for this facility. We are recommending an economic incentive package that would go along with the approvals, either a 50% real estate tax abatement if the school districts that are part of this project authorize the tax abatements, or a 50% reduction in the building permit fee, which would reduce the value of the building permit fee by $55,000. The tax abatement is about the same value as reducing the building permit by half. Actually, dealing with the building permit is an easier process for the paperwork part for the developer, but we're waiting to see what happens with the school districts. They haven't taken a position yet on the tax abatement portion of this. We're also recommending waiving the development impact fee. That value is $41,000. That's a fee that was implemented back in the mid-2000s when development was robust. With deals today, it's clear that those types of fees are probably not incentives to bring business to town, so we had extended that offer also. In addition to the incentives, though, we've been able to secure a grant from the state of Illinois for $1,137,000. It's a road construction grant from IDOT specific to this project. The staff worked on this along with the developer of the project, and the money would be earmarked for roadway improvements to New Lenox Road and Cherry Hill, dealing with turn lanes and road widening, and the grant would be usable only for that project. It's part of the economic development package that DCEO and IDOT provide as incentives to bring businesses like this to Illinois. Staff has reviewed all of the recommendations that are in the council memo. I'm recommending approval. I know Andy Burns is present on behalf of the development team to answer any questions that you may have. If this does go the route of a tax abatement, you'll see formal documents coming back to you. If it goes the route of a 50% reduction in the building permit fee, we would handle that administratively if you approve that today. We will also have further action on this with the IDOT grant. IDOT has a lot of paperwork that goes with their grants, but it's something that's definitely worth getting $1.1 million of state money to help us bring a company like this to Joliet. I know the mayor had a chance to meet the owner of the company a few weeks ago, and you were very enthused about having this company come to town.
I know when we met with them, they made no bones about pointing out that they were talking to another city and wanted to know what we could do for them. It's going to bring jobs, and I believe as a result of this, there is another cold storage looking in the area too. So this may bring another one with it and more jobs.
That's correct.
Anybody have any questions?
I do. No temporary help?
No temporary help will be there permanently. An occasion when we get what we call floor-loaded containers, in other words, they're not on pallets. Sometimes we'll call in temporary labor just because we can't handle it with our staff. That's on just a seasonal basis.
But there won't be a 90-day swinging door with employees?
No. We'll have, like I said, we'll have 30 permanent employees there all the time, maybe even more. But that would only be if business increases temporarily and then subsides.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good questions, Jan. We did cover that when we met with the owner, those questions, yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I know you didn't,
Okay.
I know, but that's why I say good questions. Anybody else?
Mayor, Tom, the tax abatement, that's pretty similar to what I know when I was on the school board, we had those come quite often when we were in the building boom to the school district about the 50% tax abatement for a short window, a short period of time. And this is usually, will the Center for Economic Development, will the CED and John Grueling be presenting that to the school districts?
Yes, that's led by John with presentations to the school boards. In this case, it's the Joliet Township High School Board on the high school side, and I believe it's the Union School District on the elementary side. So John will handle that. We're really not certain what the policy is right now. Obviously, there have been some board changes, and rather than waiting to see the outcome of that before we bring this to you, we wanted to get out in front of it, make sure that they know that they have firm commitments from the city of Joliet that we'd like to have them here. So we've planned for the contingency of it going either way.
And this is not anything out of the unusual or that we haven't done in the past?
It is not. Same thing that we did for Navistar in that general area, Central Grocers, other very good companies that come here, invest millions of dollars, hire permanent help, pay about twice the minimum wage, if not more, and add value to the community. This company's the same.
Your Honor? I would so move staff recommendation on Council Memo 115.
I had a question, Joe. We can get to that.
I'll second.
Go ahead, Blake.
Tom, if we can clarify, it's an either-or on the tax abatement versus the permit reduction?
It's,
permit
yes,
fees?
there are two contingencies. One, this would either be a 50% 5-year real estate tax abatement or reducing the building permit by 50%. Full building permit fee would be about $110,000. If we go the building permit fee reduction route, then there'd be a $55,000 savings on that end. What we would do is we wouldn't run this just as a city-only real estate tax abatement. There's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of red tape with the county on that. It gets a little cumbersome. If the other taxing districts are doing the same, then it's worth it. If it's just the city on a project this size, it's probably not worth the added red tape for the developer. For us, it's not a problem, but it does add a lot of complexity to it. So that's why we have run this as parallel incentives. It'll be one or the other.
Well, I guess my question on it is, maybe we can just move forward, if it's going to be in equal abatement, so to speak, move forward on our building permits as opposed to asking the districts with who knows what other cuts coming down the road for the school districts. I'd be comfortable moving forward on the building permit discount if it's going to be equal, right?
I think that's the direction we'll end up going on this. We just thought we'd let it play out on the school side. If it takes a long time on the school side, we'll be ready to handle it by way of reduction of the fee for the building permit.
Okay. Anybody else? Krista?
In motion and seconded, said resolution be adopted. Councilwoman Barber.
Aye.
Councilman Fisher.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Otterkirk.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Welcome to Joliet. Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Mayor Durrani.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if I could have you turn your attention to 107-13, 107-13. That's a request for a variation of use to allow a 2-unit residential structure in a single-family R2 district at 311, 313 Wilcox Street. This is at Wilcox and Buell. I'm sure many of you have driven by this particular residence for many years. It was built in 1966 as a 2-unit. It's about 2,000, a little over 2,000 square feet, and has had a few minor violations. All have been corrected. It has a 2-car garage attached to it. The owner is just getting the property in compliance with zoning requirements, and the variation of use would accomplish that. This went before the ZBA on February 21st. ZBA reviewed it and is recommending its approval. Staff is doing the same. Ray Soshin is present on behalf of the owners to answer any questions that you may have. Staff is recommending its approval. And there's a picture up above, so built like a single-family home, only two units separated by a wall.
Any questions?
So essentially, we're looking at basically kind of a duplex.
It is a duplex. It
Got
was
it.
built that way. It's actually built for related living originally, right, Ray? Is
That's
that
how
how-
it's always been.
It's always been that way, and I think Ray's parents passed away recently. Was it your dad or?
And my aunt lives in the other half, and she's going into assisted living.
Yep, so I think Ray's just getting it, previously, while it was all related living, it was in full compliance. Now that it's no longer related living, they're asking for a variation of use that would allow it to continue as a 2-unit as it was built.
As long as Ray is here, can we do this?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded, said ordinance be adopted. Councilman Fisher.
Aye.
Councilman Girl. Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Otterkirk.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilwoman Barber.
Aye.
Mayor Durrani.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thanks, Ray.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if you could look at council memo number 104-13, 104-13. This is a request from Trammell Crow Company, the developer of the Joliet Commerce Center subdivision. Those of you who were on the city council back in the late 2000s, this came before you as the first park subdivision. It's a little over, well, it's about 260 acres, I believe. It's the property that is west of the Hollywood Casino. and where Humboldt Road tees into US 6, and this is the property in the south side of 6. It's the old Chicago Gravel Company property that was annexed to the city in 1970. It has 11 industrial lots on the 262 acres. It's being developed primarily for warehousing and distribution facilities. This did come before you several years ago. The preliminary plat has lapsed. Trammell Crow has taken over the property and would like to get it back in full entitlement. This went before the Plan Commission on February 21st. Plan Commission is recommending approval of the plats. On the screen is the layout of the 11 lots. And you can see, and again, nothing is moving forward. At this point, you're not being asked to approve any particular development, but just approve the replatting of the subdivision. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. This gentleman?
Scott Wilson.
Scott Wilson is here on behalf of Trammell Crow to answer any questions that you may have. Staff is recommending its approval and concurring in the Plan Commission's recommendation.
Any questions?
Tom, is it a similar plat layout as before?
It is. Yeah, the other thing we're doing here is reserving right-of-way for a potential bridge connection that would connect Humboldt Road, or what is now Hollywood Road, across the river into Vetter and Baseline Road someday. Whether that happens or not, I don't know, but it's something that we do need to plan for in the long term.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, sure.
Tom, since I wasn't here in the late 2000s when it happened, so essentially what happened is we had a good development that was approved back then, and then the economic winds came out of the sales. And in that time, since the economy went down, the plat expired, and we're just replatting it and adding an additional advantage to the zoning.
That's correct. It can be marketed as fully entitled, ready to go. So if they want to put a spec building up, it'll deal with the staff. There will be some final platting that'll come back to you at a later date. The lines may end up moving, so that's why it's not being final platted now. But I think it's important for marketing purposes that Trammell Crow has this approved.
Any other questions?
So moved. Oh, we can't move.
We are authorized to do this today. I know Scott needs to get someplace
public
north
hearing.
for another meeting.
No, it's not public hearing, no.
So moved.
Second.
Krista?
Been motion and seconded, said ordinance be adopted. Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hugg.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Otterkirk.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilwoman Barber.
Aye.
Councilman Fisher.
Aye.
Mayor Girani.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if I could have you look at Council Memo 105-13, 105-13. That's the approval of a variation of use to allow a 2-unit residential structure in an R2 district at 217 Logan Avenue. This is similar to the situation we had with Mr. Soshin's property, a 2-unit this one was built a long time ago in 1900 as a 2-unit. And what we're being asked now is to allow the 2-unit to continue to exist in a single-family residential neighborhood. This went before the Zoning Board of Appeals in January. The Zoning Board is recommending its approval, and staff is doing the same. The owners of the property are present to answer any questions that you may have.
Council, any questions?
Mayor, I do.
Yes.
I'd like to ask the owners why it was let go for so long.
Yeah, if you can come up to the podium, just tell us what your name is, sir.
Mike Jurisic, this was my grandfather's house, and it was a 2-story, or a 2-rental at that time, always had occupants above it. Then when he passed, my father continued to rent it. And since then, my father had a accident which made him a quadriplegic, so it did lapse in some amount of time that we were able to do something with it. So we basically rehabbed it and got it ready to rent, just to help for his care now, as a second income for him.
Sorry for your father.
I appreciate that.
There are a few items that need to be done yet, and Mr. Jurisic has indicated they'd be done, right, with the garage? Yeah, if you can just address that.
One was the garage and the driveway. As soon as the weather permits, we'll get in there and take care of that.
I saw most of the violations were abated already, so.
So that, yeah, and the one thing we have to work out, I'm a little bit nervous about paving the driveway because of, if you can see how close the driveway is to the block wall. So possibly looking to an engineer, finding out if we can get equipment in there and actually pave that driveway if there is another thing that we could possibly do.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll continue to monitor it on the two items. There's a 180-day window to get all of those items done. Staff will monitor that, and I'm sure Mr. Jurisic will take care of that within the 6-month period. Staff is recommending its approval. This is not subject to a public hearing. If you are prepared to vote on it today, certainly welcome to.
I move to approve.
What's your pleasure? Sure.
Quick question. Mr. Jurisic had mentioned, and I see from the picture, his concerns probably of putting some pressure on the older limestone wall. Would, under our ordinance, paver block would work as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Paper block through that section.
I move to approve.
Second. Krista?
Motion and seconded, said ordinance be adopted. Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Otterkirk.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilwoman Barber.
Aye.
Councilman Fisher.
Aye.
Councilman Burrow.
Aye.
Mayor Girani.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Jim Murphy has two liquor license matters before you, Council Memo 128 and 129.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. 128-13. On the Rocks, a hearing was held on March 6, 2013 for the transfer of a Class B liquor license at 1500 Essington Road. Class B allows for the sale of alcohol on the premises only. No one appeared in opposition. The applicants are Douglas Werfel and Robert Bolderoux of Jackpots Gaming and Spirits of Joliet, Inc., doing business as On the Rocks. Since the applicants are Plainfield residents, they've named David Gorman of Joliet as their resident manager. The applicants are requesting your approval of the transfer from the current owner, Marlene Curry. There are no outstanding monies owed to the city. The transfer is recommended by the Building, Fire, and Police Departments. The Liquor Commissioner is also recommending approval.
Motion?
A question?
Sure.
Jim?
Yes.
So that they've got a gaming or a slot license?
They have applied for the entertainment permit, which they need to apply for the state.
Through the state.
The gaming license.
This was an existing bar, so if they wanted a video poker, they would have been eligible for it through the city.
Was your grandfather?
No, because we are giving all the
Current business
exist,
owners.
right,
Right, okay.
first correct, yes, yes.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Krista?
It's been motioned and seconded to transfer a Class B liquor license to Douglas Werfel and Robert Bolderoux for On the Rocks. Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Otterkirk.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilwoman Barber.
Aye.
Councilman Fisher.
Aye.
Councilman Gurl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Mayor Girani.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Council Memo 129-13, Stefanich Restaurant. A hearing was held on March 6, 2013 for the transfer of shares only of a Class E as in Edward liquor license at 457 North Scott Street, doing business as Stefanich Restaurant. Class E licenses are assigned to restaurants and hotels. No one appeared in opposition. Current owners are James Grant of Joliet and Maria de Jesus Costilla of Joliet. Mr. Grant has requested your approval of the transfer of his shares to Ms. Costilla, who would own the business outright. Again, they are both already on the license. She would just assume 100% of the business. There are no outstanding monies owed to the city. The transfer is recommended by the Building and Fire Departments. Chief Trafton does not oppose the transfer. However, he is concerned about the number of calls for service at this location. He recommends close monitoring of the situation. The Liquor Commissioner's office will work with Ms. Costilla to address the chief's concern, and the Liquor Commissioner is recommending approval.
Jim, what was the breakdown of shares before, do you know? Maria?
Mr. Grant had the majority of the shares, correct?
Yeah, the majority of the shares.
More than
Was
50.
it
50%.
51? Okay.
This is Maria.
Yeah. He had the majority.
He had the
He's
majority
turning them all
before,
over to
and then he
you.
turned them over to me.
Okay, all right. Questions? Sure.
Did you have a preliminary idea or plan of what you might do to address the concerns of our chiefs?
Yes, I'm going to take full effect on that from here on out. I mean, he just had, put that to my attention about the calls and stuff like that, which I'm going to see what I can do and talk to them about, you know, bettering the situation. You know, a lot of them were just unwanted customers and stuff like that. And then there's residents in the back that called, which they come under my address too. So it's not all 100% mine. So that's why I'm see which one and what I can do to better mine.
Okay, thank you. And Chief, you're happy with what Jim has put together as far as monitoring it closely?
I am. I think we could work with the new business owner. I think it's probably a breath of fresh air, so.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So moved. Second.
Krista?
Motion and seconded to transfer shares of a Class E liquor license to Maria Costilla for Stefanich Restaurant. Councilman Otterkirk.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilwoman Barber.
Aye.
Councilman Fisher.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hugg.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Mayor Durrani.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if I can have you turn your attention to Council Memo 108-13, 10813. That is a special use permit to allow the addition of a tire repair shop to an existing self-service car wash at 1227 East Cass Street. This is the red roof self-service car wash that has been there for several decades. It was a three-bay car wash that was built on a slab in 1966. The applicant is the lessee of the property, Noe Mendez. Mr. Mendez is requesting permission to operate a tire repair shop in addition to the self-service car wash. Hours of operation would be from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday. It would be closed on Sunday. This went before the Zoning Board of Appeals on February 21st of this year. The ZBA is recommending in favor of the petition. No one appeared in opposition. Staff is recommending the same. And I believe Ms. Amy Sanchez is present on behalf of the owners to answer any questions that you may have.
Are they going to do away with the car wash?
No, the car wash will still be in
This will be in
existence.
addition.
Right, because there's such a minimal profit from the car wash right now.
All
He's
right.
just looking of other ways to bring in a source of income.
Okay. Any other questions? Then, it's your pleasure.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded that ordinance be adopted. Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilwoman Barber.
Aye.
Councilman Fisher.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hugg.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Otterkirk.
Aye.
Mayor Durrani.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if we can go back to the beginning of the agenda. I don't know if we've missed anybody, but we'll get to them as we go through the agenda, if we have. Council review of the minutes of the February 19th and the March 4th City Council meeting. Those minutes will be before you for review and approval tomorrow evening. Next item, the treasurer's report for January 31st, 2013 will be before you for a review. And I believe there's a Finance Committee meeting tomorrow that it will be reviewed at. Next item, Council Memo 86-13, that's the Autobahn item that'll be on for tomorrow night's agenda. Next three items, 87, 88, 89, 90, and 91 are carryovers from the last meeting. They are the 5 public hearings that we will have for the 5 special service areas that are being proposed for road reconstruction projects in 5 separate neighborhoods. The first one is for Cottage Place and Jasper Street. Cottage from West Park to Wheeler, Jasper from Millboro to Wheeler. That is a $216,000 project. We're asking the property owners that have frontage on that property to pay a total of $10,850 collectively under the policy that was adopted by the council many years ago. Next item is the special service area for Hutchins between Elizabeth and Broadway. That would be, the estimate for that project is $151,000, and the local contribution from the property owners would be a total of $6,900. Next item is the SSA for Prairie between Western and Glenwood. That is proposed to be just under $189,000 road reconstruction project. And the property contributions would total $2,950 for that. And then the next one, SSA number 4, is Miller from 2nd Avenue to Hickory Creek. That is proposed to be a $139,000 project with $4,950 coming from adjacent property owners. And the last one, SSA number 5, is Young's between Jackson and Ohio Street, a project of just under $144,000. And the contributions from the property owners will be $3,300. I don't know if we'll see anybody here tomorrow night, but usually most neighborhoods welcome these kinds of projects. It's a complete reconstruct of the road, sidewalks, curb gutter, storm sewer, and adds value to their property. If it's approved tomorrow night, then we will start the process and then eventually go off for bid on the road projects and then bring that contract back to you for completion in 2013. Next item is 104. I'm sorry, we took care of 104, all right. We took care of 105, 104 and 105. And 106 is the next item. Council Memo 106-13. That is a variation of use to amend a previously approved variation of use, and the request this time is to allow packaged liquor sales at 700 Henry Street. The applicant is Mr. Manjeet Rihal. I don't know if Mr. Rihal is present today, or his attorney. So I will hold this one over till tomorrow night, but this is a neighborhood tavern that goes back many years ago. It was Galleys, and I'm sure many of you were there when it was Galleys. Back in 1990, the city council approved a variation to allow it to continue in a single-family residential neighborhood. It was discovered that the owner of the bar was having a package license, or package sales coming out of the tavern, which was not allowed under the original license. The recommendation was if they wanted to continue the package license operation, they'd have to come back and get an amendment to the variation of use that was approved in 1990. This went before the ZBA. The ZBA is recommending to deny the request. Staff is doing the same. We're recommending against allowing package sales to come from the property or the bar that's now known as Manny's Place. We'll certainly give the owner an opportunity to come tomorrow night to voice his opinion on this. Council Memo 10713 is the Wilcox Street property, which we've taken care of. 108 is the Cass Street property, which we've taken care of. 109 is a special use permit to allow used car sales lot for up to 10 cars at 101 North Center Street. The applicant is Herberto Gonzalez Ruiz, who's the lessee of property that's owned by Luann Kinney. I'm sure many of you have driven by this site on the northwest corner of Center and Jefferson Street. It's a 1,232 square foot frame office building on a 9,000 square foot lot. The request is to allow a 10-car used car lot to be at this property. This special use was actually approved back in November of 2002. The business opened but didn't stay in business very long. The request is to try it again, a different owner this time, I believe. And the hours of operation would be Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., closed on Sundays. This went before the Zoning Board of Appeals on February 21st, and the ZBA is recommending its approval. The staff is recommending the same.
Mayor?
Yes.
I have a real problem with this because we're trying to revitalize the Jefferson Street corridor, and all we have are little 10 and 12 used car lots. And this is the gateway into downtown city center, and with all the new projects going on, I don't know how the rest of this council feels, but I personally don't feel we need another 10 or 12 used car lot in a neighborhood that's on the, on the cusp of something special to happen downtown. I mean, there's used car lots all up and down Jefferson Street now, and there's one right across the street and down the street, and that area itself is so small. When it was a used car lot, it was just, cars were just packed there all the time. So I, for one, I've got to call into the CAPA president, and he has not returned my call yet, because I just saw this morning. So that's just my opinion. I mean, we're trying to revitalize that corridor, and if we have a chance to get this piece back, I think we should.
Any other comments?
What's in there now?
It was a car lot, it's vacant right now.
Vacant, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, just a comment too. In general, Councilwoman Quillman, I agree with you. However, this piece of property, as a standalone piece of property in itself, really is limited on what type of uses. It's been vacant for a little bit of time, but it's had a history of car use there, car lot use. I think most of us would probably agree that Jefferson Street and some of the older corridors in Joliet, we need to put together a plan, and I know at our land use committee meetings, we have asked staff to take a look at the Jefferson Street corridor and see how properties can be combined in order to bring a bigger type use there. But this lot in itself has limited uses at the present time until we can finish that plan and possibly put some incentives in, like a TIP district along the Jefferson Street corridor, and have a plan where these varied properties can be combined together in order to have more viable projects.
Well, why not an open space?
Pardon me?
Why not an open space? Because the reason this is coming back to as a special use is because the special use permit expired.
Well, I believe the
that
property owner, I believe it's been zoned commercial for some time. It would have to be some body, whether it be the Park District or the City of Joliet, would have to come in and buy the property and at commercial prices, so I'm not sure if that'd be viable either.
I understand what you're saying, but what are our alternatives? To leave it the way it is, and it'll turn into who knows what, then we'll have to condemn it, go through the process of tearing it down, or allow the car sales, and when in fact we do have a TIF district for Jefferson Street, perhaps the owner would be interested in selling it or developing it for something else. But I just hate to see a vacant building there for people to hang out and graffiti, et cetera.
Well, I'd like to hear what Kappa has to say on
Your
that.
Honor,
Yes, sure.
according to the minutes of the ZBA, it says that the Kappa Association has no objection to the proposal.
Well, that's what I want to verify, because Ms. Darley is no longer on the Kappa board.
Okay.
Mr. Haller, were you at the meeting, or Kendall Jackson?
Yeah, I was at the meeting. Mrs. Darley, who's, as you know, sits on the zoning board of appeals, has had a conversation with the Kappa board, so she reported to that zoning board of appeals group that she in fact had talked to the board, and the board was in supportive of this request.
Thank you.
One last question.
Sure.
Tom or Jim, whoever, how many spaces are there total roughly estimated to be in that parking lot? Because we're talking about 10 used cars and then room for customers, right?
Yeah. Looks like there's 10 along the frontage and 3 that are adjacent to the building, maybe 4. Maybe 4. So a total of 14 spaces and then a driveway, it looks like.
On a very
But
busy
presume
clock.
there's going to be some employee parking.
Sorry.
I would imagine that 1 or 2 of the 3 or 4 spaces would be used by employees, yes.
And have we determined that on-street parking for overflow would be, ample?
Now, I don't think there's any on-street parking there because it's
right on.
a busy street on both sides, Jefferson and Center, so there's no on-street parking. Probably, I don't know, Charlie's lot or the Wendy's lot if there's.
Or down the street on South Center.
Okay. Jan?
Well, that is a very, very busy corner. A lot of accidents happen there. And I know before, when it was a used car lot, they didn't have just 10 or 12. That place was packed with used cars. It just didn't look good for the neighborhood. So
Okay. Well,
that's my opinion.
okay, that's fine. We'll settle it tomorrow night. Done.
By then, I hope to hear back from the president. That was all.
Next 3 items, 110, 111, 112, council memos 110, 111, 112, ordinances that are levying for the special service areas that were approved by the city council in 2009, 2010, and 2011 for road reconstruction projects. All of these projects have been closed out. The property owner's portion of the projects are ready to be billed. Staff would like to move forward with it. This is required under the state special service area statute, so we're asking for authorization to do that tomorrow night. Next item is 114-13, and that is request for authorization to declare a certain property as surplus. The property is a 1951 American LaFrance ladder truck that is no longer being used by the Joliet Fire Department. It does not have much salvage value either. The staff has tried to see if any other departments might have a need for it. Looks like no one does. Salvage parts aren't really available, so we're recommending that staff be authorized to dispose of the property.
You sure somebody out there won't buy it to have an antique fire truck?
I think, I'm not sure what's going on, and Deputy Chief Ray Randich can let us know if there's anything.
Ray, you want that for your garage at home?
I'd love it, but my wife said no. The fire department has had this vehicle, and it's been parked at Station 10, and it's been sitting there for,
Ever.
well, it's been sitting on the fire department for over 25 years.
Wow.
And that's become the problem with it, is that we've not had any use for it. We've not been able to use it. We don't use it in any kind of parades, or there's really nothing that we've ever done with the vehicle.
in the time that we had it on the fire department. So what the chief has done is after we've moved out of Station 2, which is on Campbell Street, we've turned that building over to the water department to help them with some of their needs in that area. So by doing that, when we closed, or when we, the fire department, moved out of Station 2 on Campbell Street, we had to relocate the vehicles that were in that station that we held in reserve, and we had to disperse them throughout the city. So what happened at that point then is we became stressed for room in the other stations. So with the ladder truck at Station 10, again, we don't use it, it's not a reserve vehicle, the ladder is no longer tested. It's just a nice 1951 vehicle, which, again, nobody on our department, we don't drive it, we don't use it. So the chief said at that point, you know, why are we're keeping this vehicle here and nobody even sees it. So we've tried to reach out to some of the museums in the area, the Aurora Fire Museum, the Chicago Fire Museum. We worked with ex-fire chief Larry Walsh. He has contacts throughout the state. And again, everybody says the same thing like myself. We'd love to have it, but nowhere to keep it.
Right.
And a lot of departments, they have their own pieces of equipment that they'd like to show off as well, but they just don't have any room for those either. So what the chief did is we worked through through Chief Walsh, we worked with a gentleman that actually wrote us an article in a fire apparatus magazine, and it was actually entitled No Room at the Barn, and he kind of highlighted this vehicle. So we did have some comments and some feedback come back on the vehicle on people that would possibly like to have it. We had a few nibbles, we had a few bites. But what the chief wants to do at this point is, knowing that we do have a few nibbles and we have a few bites, before he moves any further with that process, he would like to make sure that we can, you know, surplus the vehicle and that there's not a problem from city staff on doing that before it pursues going that direction any further. But there is some, we don't want to see the vehicle scrapped. So we do want to see it used somewhat in more of somebody that's going to use it more in a public setting.
Mayor, I have a question.
Sure.
Could we put something like that on eBay? I mean, I don't know if legally, can we do that, Jeff?
I don't see why not.
Because they'll buy anything on eBay. Might be able to get some more money for it. Just a thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of what the chief was doing, though, was just making sure that he wanted to, through some of these people that did it, because sometimes somebody's going to buy it and they want to buy it for scrap. So he reached out to people that were more in the industry, and hoping that those people would bring it back and use it more as a showpiece vehicle.
American France is out of business, right?
Yes.
Because that'd be nice if they had a museum. But so is there any opposition of them seeing what they can get for it, scrapping it?
Are we scrapping it, or are we?
Well, I mean, getting rid of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Ray, some of the nibbles and bites we got, did anybody talk money?
Yeah, a couple of them. One was a university where we thought if it could have got there, we probably would have looked more at a donation setting for that. But some of the nibbles and bites that we've had on it are from private collectors. So if we do go with if the chief does look more like a private collector, he would probably look at attaching a price tag to it.
So what Chief Ramos is looking for is the flexibility to start to, if you will, negotiate on serious offers.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
And this will be on tomorrow night's agenda for your review. Council Memo 115-13, we've taken care of already. 117-13 is the regular payroll for March 1st of 2013, along with the overtime usage report. Next two items, treasurer's disbursements for February of 2013 and the regular claims for 2013. These are available for public review on the on the city's website. It's basically our checkbook. It shows where all of the dollars go in the city of Joliet. And you could follow it all the way from the biggest ticket item we have to the smallest reimbursement check we may issue. And then I believe the remaining items have either been reviewed at CTIS committee or will be reviewed at a finance committee meeting between now and tomorrow evening. And those committees will have recommendations for you at the meeting tomorrow night. And then 128 and 129 were the liquor license items we dealt with. And then Council Memo 130-13 is a recommendation from Mayor Durante on the appointment of two people to the Joliet Historic Preservation Commission, Jerry Eck and Michael Grady. And I believe that's on for tomorrow night. And that concludes the agenda. I don't think we have anybody else on agenda items. We do have citizens to be heard. Alicia Morales would like to address the City Council on the detention center.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alicia Morales. I live at 645 Francis Street. Congratulations on all the work that you're doing. And once again, I am here to talk about this detention center. It doesn't seem like we've had an opportunity to have an open dialogue, and hopefully we will at some point, so that it's not just our city council taking a vote on an issue that's going to impact the greater portion of your community. What I also have is just some information that I like to keep informing our council members on, contrary to what Mr. Thanis keeps telling you and how great these state-of-the-art prisons are. That's kind of an oxymoron, because prisons normally aren't state-of-the-art. You have state-of-the-art hospitals, you have state-of-the-art schools. A state-of-the-art prison, I'm not sure how you would define that, but I'd like to give this to Krista, and if she could pass one out to everybody, is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. What she's passing out is a cover story from Rolling Stone magazine. This is not a Latino magazine. It's just a regular magazine that people like to read. And it basically discusses how horrible these detention centers are for communities. Immigration officials, they actually do seek out undocumented immigrants to apprehend for minor crimes in order to boost deportation numbers. I understand February 19th, Mr. Thanis keeps going back saying that this is an exploratory project, that it's not something that's being considered, when we all know that it is being considered. And he pretty much took ownership and said, this is something I'm looking into to see if it's a good fit. Mr. Thanis, with all due respect, if you can please broaden your creativity to bring jobs to Joliet, this is not a good fit for our community or for the residents that pay taxes, which ultimately do pay your salary. I have so much to say, and I'm sorry, I'm very passionate about this issue. Even if I wasn't Latino, even if I was white or black, I would still be standing before you telling you that this is just an inhumane type of prison to bring to our community. What our community needs is for our council members to step out of your comfort zone and to really look at the heart of your community, be more inclusive. I saw in a television interview with Mr. Don Fisher, he kept saying we need more of this, we need more inclusion. Well, where is it? We need to see it. And inclusion means appointing people that are different from you, Mr. Durante, to different positions. I see here that you're appointing, people to the museum. We need more transparency, we need more inclusion, we need more Latinos to represent our community. If you look at all of our boards, school board, park board, library board, police and fire board, city council, Will County, there is no Latino representation. We have to work really hard to try and get elected, and that's what we're doing. We have a coalition of people that are working to get out the vote. So just having said that, I just want to ask for more transparency from our elected officials. There are many discussions that we need to have revolving around diversity and inclusion, and it makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And unfortunately, these are conversations that do need to take place so that we can bring good paying jobs to Joliet. There's a lot of great work that everyone here is doing, but we still have much more ahead of us. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the next person to have signed up to speak is Dama Calderon regarding the detention center.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to...
Name and address, please.
Dama Calderon, 340 Macon Avenue in Romeoville, Illinois, 60446. First of all, I want to go ahead and tell Mayor Durante, thank you. It's good that you were able to go ahead and have a safe trip back home. Also to all the council members, I am working on meeting with every one of you. Just be patient. I do have other things you would not imagine what I do. But in reference to the detention center, I do want to tell City Manager Tom Thanis, At one point, you did meet with a few of the members who are concerned citizens in Joliet, and there was a comment that you did make in reference to some of us not being intellectual. It's okay, and we respect the fact that you are a city manager.
Actually, I'll stop you right there. I never said that.
There's a few of the members.
I can guarantee you I never said that.
I wasn't there.
Well, then I would suggest you stop making that allegation that I accused anybody of not being intellectual. That's not the way I operate. I respect every single person I deal with. I give them an opportunity to be heard. I have told people that I may disagree with them on this particular issue, and they disagree with me. I respect their right to disagree. The only time I don't necessarily want to let you say whatever you want to say is when you are putting words in my mouth that are not true, and you just did that.
All I'm saying is something that I heard. I was not there.
Well, then I wouldn't repeat it if you weren't there, because I can guarantee you, if you're alleging that I said that the people I was meeting with were not intellectual, I can guarantee you that is not true. I can give you the list of people I met with. You can go back one by one, ask them if I actually said that, and I can guarantee you they will tell you that I didn't say that.
May I please finish?
You may if you're going to speak the truth. You can have your right to an opinion, but you can't have your right to your own set of facts that aren't true.
With all due respect, if I could just go ahead and finish, and then after I'm done,
the mayor runs the meeting, not me.
Go right ahead, but you know, we've heard people talk. Please keep your comments to facts, actualities. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, and that's pretty much it. You know, I understand that you say that you have a full agenda. We respect that. You have other things to do besides just the detention center. It's not going. You know, you're taking this personally.
No, I'll stop you there again. I'm not taking this personally. I can assure you that this has nothing to do with personal issues. This has to do with the business of this city. My job is to bring development. We just brought forth a $28 million project that's going to employ 30 people who don't have jobs right now. And it's going to pay them a decent wage. Not a great wage, but a decent wage. It's going to help the school districts out by creating a tax base. It's going to help local vendors who may be able to do business with them, local labor unions that have 20, 30, 40% unemployment rate in the union halls right now. That's what this mayor and city council have been doing for the last 5 years that we've struggled through what is the worst recession in 3 generations. One opportunity came my way. I've explored it. I continue to explore it. Until somebody tells me it's ready to be presented, there's really no need for me to get this mayor and city council involved in the topic. I know it's been, you know, something that has galvanized the Hispanic community and the Catholic Church to take action to the point where they want to position signs in certain chairs so they can be seen on the cable TV replay every chance they get. But what, you know, my comment has been was, you know, let this thing play out. If there's going to be a project, then I can assure you this mayor and city council will sit here until the cows come home from the moon to hear everybody's opinion on this. And I think they've heard from other people saying it is a good project. A lot of the things that you may have been saying or may believe may not be 100% accurate, but that'll all come out later on if there's going to be a project. If this facility is going to go to another town, then I'm sure you'll run over to that town and have the same conversation with the elected body there. That's, again, I'm trying to help the community. We have high unemployment. We have schools that need revenue. We have people who need jobs, and that's all I'm trying to do here. If this moves forward, I'm sure you'll have an opportunity to be heard on it, and you have an opportunity to be heard on it, even though it's not a formal project yet.
Dama, I can assure you before that project comes to this council that there will be meetings and there will be transparency. You and everybody else sitting out there with their signs, etc., and you are going to hear the facts. I can assure you of that.
Okay, I appreciate that. And to District Councilman Hug, thank you for apologizing when you didn't need to apologize. And the one who really needed to apologize in reference to offending the Catholic Church organization was actually City Manager Thanis.
Yeah, and I'll say one more time, I'm not going to apologize. I think all we have to do is read the newspaper articles from the last 10 days to talk about what the Catholic Church has gone through. I'm hoping that the Pope, Pope Francis, will be able to right the wrongs that have been committed. He seems to be pledging that, but I think all you have to do is read the front page of the newspapers to understand what I had to say. My point was, I'm not here to argue the case against or for the Catholic Church. My point was the Catholic Church, the local diocese, has turned its back on the Hispanic community by closing schools that served predominantly Hispanic families and has walked away from the Hispanic community. If you're willing to tolerate that, then stay silent. If you're not, then I suggest you go to the diocese and deal with them directly and not take shots at me over it.
I'm not taking any shots in reference to the school closings. It was just in reference for respect, but that is my opinion. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor?
Yes.
I appreciate any compliment that comes whether I deserve it or not, but one thing I've been known for is being very direct. I don't think anybody would suggest otherwise. This is going to be a process should it come to a situation where we have a real project. What I demand from all sides is accuracy. Check, recheck, and double check. Ms. Morales, I have a lot of respect for you. But the last time you were here, and we need to clarify this, you made an accusation against our police department, and I've been told since then that the facts weren't accurate on that issue, and I would like to give our chief an opportunity if it's okay with the
We're going to
mayor.
get to that. We're going to get to that. Thank you.
I did want to come out and say that publicly, that I did take umbrage at the misinformation about our police department and stopping one young man that you had brought in several weeks ago.
Was somebody else on comment? I thought, no. With that in mind, Chief, as Councilman Hug mentioned, 4 weeks ago there was some statements made about the police department. I'd like to have you address them.
Mr. Mayor, Council. At recent meetings, there's been much talk about this detention center. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, the Joliet Police Department has been brought into this argument. I want to make it perfectly clear that the Joliet Police Department does not enforce immigration law. No matter what people are saying, it just isn't true. We do not have the ability, nor do we want the ability, to check immigration status on people. We rely on all the people of Joliet in our efforts to combat crime and the criminal element. Our mission statement is very clear. The mission of the Joliet Police Department is to enhance the quality of life of the city of Joliet by working with the community for a safe city. We pledge to enforce the laws, preserve the peace, reduce fear, and provide a safe environment in which to live, work, and recreate, and to do so within the framework of the United States Constitution. We are committed to providing the highest quality of police service to our community. We believe, and all membership shall abide by the following: in the dignity and worth of all people, and will remain completely impartial toward all persons concerning the attention of the department, without regard for race, gender, creed, age, sexual preference, or position of influence in the community. I start all my community meetings with this statement. I also start all my department training with this statement. I recently had the pleasure of attending our swearing-in ceremony for our 12 new officers. I invited them and their families to attend. I read them this statement and told them this is at the very heart of what we do as a police department. I don't care if you're from Country Glen, Forest Park, or Collins Street. We meet regularly with community members from all across our city. We must work together. We are willing to meet with any group and do so on a daily basis. If you can't meet with us, we'll return your phone calls and your emails. If there is a problem, we'll address it and we'll keep you informed. In order for us to be our best, we need the support and trust of our entire community. We work very hard at this and will continue to do so. I hope that those that are given the opportunity to speak before this council do so in a manner to unite the community. Why be divisive when you can be inclusive? People can disagree and still treat each other with dignity and respect. I need to clarify a few comments that were made by Ms. Morales in the February 19th council meeting regarding a traffic stop and the actions of the Joliet Police Department. I've had a chance to review her statements and look into the traffic stop in question. She stated that a young man was harassed for no valid reason. The subject in question was stopped for going 50 miles per hour above the posted speed limit and improper lane usage. He was also driving with a suspended driver's license. Ms. Morales stated that we need to train our officers in reference to the DREAM Act and new laws in obtaining driver's licenses. The DREAM Act is federal legislation that has nothing to do with Illinois driver's licenses. Illinois has recently passed legislation covering the temporary visitor's driver's license, but this won't take effect until sometime in November. He did not obtain his license any of these ways. He obtained it by changing his name, which the officer subsequently confiscated and correctionally charged him with. His vehicle was searched and towed per department policy. The officers in question are under the direct supervision of a Hispanic supervisor. These officers did their jobs correctly as police officers. By labeling their actions as racially related, you are guilty of just what you're saying you're fighting against. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. One other question. 2 weeks ago at a meeting, a priest from St. John's made some accusations concerning an individual, and we asked him to get that individual's name to Commander Benton. Do you know if that happened?
Yes, he has never reached out to Commander Benton.
He never has?
No.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
Ms. Morales, as I said, I do respect you. I would like to give you an opportunity, with the permission of the mayor, to publicly apologize to Chief Trafton on that one situation that he just described and the department he does lead with integrity.
Yes, Chief and I did have a meeting, and I can sit here and be like Mr. Thanos and refuse. Now, if there is an apology, I will give it to him. After we met, it resulted in 2 officers. We filed a complaint against 2 officers because of the taunting, the slurs that were made toward the young man and his wife. There were racial slurs, and it is documented in the complaint that we filed. We complained not so much about the driver's license. That's what ultimately led up to him being stopped. But the fact of the behavior of the officers at that time was very unprofessional. There were racial slurs, which did result in a complaint on 2 different officers from the young man and his wife. So I will apologize to you. And they told me it was based on the DREAM Act and that was not true. That's what their lawyer said to them. So the fact that I was believing what they told me, I will apologize for that. But there were 2 complaints, which you failed to mention, Chief Trafton, on the professionalism of the officers, the way they treated the person and the way they wrecked his car when they searched it without a search warrant and damaged his vehicle to a great deal. So that's what happened. Thank you.
Your Honor.
Mayor?
I was wondering if the chief wants to answer that. No, okay. Mike, and then I'll get you, John. Mike?
Your Honor, you know, the city manager has said time and time again that if and when the city is approached on this project, that there will be public hearings throughout the whole city. You just reiterated that that's going to happen, and there's no doubt in my mind that will happen. And we've never refused to listen to anybody before. We won't do it at this point. Myself and almost every member of the council, I think, had one-on-one meetings with Father Lesher. He called me up. I went over and talked to him. He says he asked me to investigate it, do my homework, which I do on every project that comes before this council, just to slow down and get the facts, which I intend to do. And I assured him that I would do that. And I think almost everyone that he talked to, I'm sure, told him the same thing. And that's how we operate. You know, the city manager is doing his job. He has to bring us facts. He has to investigate. And the mayor and the other council people sitting up here are the ones that's going to either approve the project or not approve the project. We have the final say. The city manager doesn't vote on these projects. We have the final say. So we will be listening to the hearings. We'll be listening to the facts that Mr. Thanos brings to us. We'll be listening to the facts that the community bring us. We'll be doing our own investigation, and we intend to do that. And so, you know, it's the fact that the city manager has to bring these options to us is not reflective that he is, he brings other stuff to this committee or this council that we don't do it. We either say yes or no. But, you know, it's the mayor and council, it's the 9 of us sitting up here, or the 9 individuals who will be here after April 9th that will make that decision.
Thank you.
You know, I just want to thank you, Mayor. Sure. I just want to make sure that the point is not lost here, and I want to thank Chief Trafton for articulating his position. But I think the issue is, and what we have to be careful about not doing, and we shouldn't do, is somehow drawing the men and women of the Joliet Police Department into this conversation. They have no business in this conversation at all. They're trying to do their job. They're trying to treat everybody fairly, and it is not helpful to somehow bring them into this conversation with respect to this potential immigration detention facility. And I would just ask that if you have an issue with respect to the detention facility, address it to the mayor, address it to the city council, because as Councilman Turk had just mentioned, we're the ones who are going to be making the decision, nobody else. But as of right now, there's not a decision to be made. But again, what I would ask is that please, let's not somehow try and unfairly drive a wedge between our Hispanic community and our Joliet Police Department. It's unhealthy and it's not helpful. If you have an issue, and I respect everybody's opinion that they may have with respect to the detention facility, but please leave our men and women of the Joliet Police Department out of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
I'm
Wait a
sorry,
minute.
Jan.
Wait a minute. Is
Let
there
her-
a motion
let
to
her-
allow her to speak?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to allow the citizen to speak. All in favor?
Aye. Name and
Opposed?
address, please.
My name is Charlotte Drugan. I live at 164 Seabury Road in Bolingbrook. And I passed out invitations to the city council a couple weeks ago, and I just want to thank the city council members who attended our fundraiser on March 10th. It was a multicultural fundraiser with food and music, and there were 4 of you there. We raised over $3,000, and I appreciate the fact that you came out and did something of a social nature to meet the people that are involved in this issue.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jan?
Thank you. Over a month ago, and I appreciate, again, like this council has said over and over and over again, we want the facts. But every time someone comes to the podium and speaks, and again, slams our police department. Now, there's a young lady sitting here now, currently, I'm not going to throw her under the bus, but came up here and said again that our police department arrested a family because the father was, illegal, and we profiled them. And the story went on and on. So when the council, I didn't think to ask at the time, but after the council meeting, I went up to her and I asked her, did that happen here in Joliet? And I was told, no, it was Bolingbrook. So I don't know what these other cities are doing, okay? But again, I as a council member, and I'm sure none of these council members that are sitting up here today would tolerate anything like that from our police department. And if that is happening, we investigated. We've investigated every comment that has been made up here, particularly last week or 2 weeks ago when the pastor from St. John was here. Gave him the opportunity to talk to the chief. Never returned the phone call. I personally took him over there and said, we will not tolerate that. So let's make the complaint now and follow through. Give us the name. No response. So I understand your concerns, what are happening in other towns. But that's not happening here in Joliet. And if it is, we want to know about it. And we've investigated everything that you've told us. And our chief has gotten up here to give you the facts. That's all we want are the facts. We can respect each other, we can have differences of opinion, but we need to do it based on facts. And that's all I have to say.
I just want to add one thing to that, Jan. Once I have a person lie to me, I don't care who it is, that casts a shadow on everything they tell me after that, okay? If they're honest with me, it's one thing, but if they lie to me, everything they tell me, I got to think twice about it. Who else wanted to talk?
Mr. Mayor, I too, and I think all of us on the city council had a very nice discussion with Father Lesher several weeks ago, and times after that too. And I implored Father Lesher, and you have been very good, and you're a very good role model for your cause in this effort, to please, if everyone could be factual, professional. Our community means too much to me and the rest of this mayor and city council and to the staff. There's no one here on the staff, from Tom Thanis to the police chief to everyone here, who does not love our city. What I see happening is, in this discussion, is our city is being torn apart, and I don't care for it because I care about Joliet tremendously. We can have different opinions, and I would say, I can speak for myself, I want to, just like the rest of the city council wants to hear facts, I want to hear discussion. I like to hear opinions, but I want to hear opinions in a professional manner. I want to hear respect. This community deserves respect. The people who watch these meetings, who are not able to attend our meetings here, deserve the respect in a discussion over the next several months that we should have, a long discussion like Councilman Turk said. So I implore everyone, let's please take the emotion out of this. Let's not be accusing anybody of whatever their personal issue might be, because it does no good for either side, either cause, and I know it is not doing any good for the city of Joliet at this point by not being professional and respectful in our opinions. And I implore everyone, please, in the future, that we get over this stuff and let's do the right thing and respect each other.
Thank you. That's it?
Mayor, one follow-up comment?
Sure.
Mayor.
Wait a minute.
A month ago, I got applause for what appeared to be demanding respect for the Catholic Church from Mr. Thanis. And that's great. Now I'm demanding respect for my police department, for your police department. And I should hear applause for that, too.
Okay. Step up the microphone, name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Virginia Bradley. I live in Joliet, lifetime.
Address?
414 Stockton Drive,
Thank you.
Joliet, Illinois.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
And I just want to say,
All in
thank
favor?
you.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm not up on this
Go
stuff.
ahead.
I just want to say that I back my police department and my police chief. For the time that I've known him, that man has been nothing but integrity. And if you asked me to describe him, I would tell you that that is Chief Trafton. He demands that. He demands that of his police department, and if it's not like that, he will look into it. The stuff that was said today, the hearsay, I heard whatever, that does not represent the full Hispanic community from this town. And I just want to say, I fully support my police department, my chief, and my Hispanic community. Maybe we just need to be a little bit more educated and informed on the things that actually happen. But I just want to say, I can't sit still with my face feeling flushed and not stand up and say something and back up my police chief and my police department. Thank you.
Thank you. And when the time comes that it's going to come to this council for a decision, as I said, and it's been repeated, we will have meetings, let everybody get a chance for their say, okay? Anything else?
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I had one item I wanted to bring up. I had a conversation end of last week, Mayor, with City Manager Tom Thanis. We had purchased several buildings, including what's often referred to as the law offices building. It was brought to my attention by several people that there was a lease that was signed, essentially, the long and the short of it was allowing the previous owner, once we took possession, to continue to collect the rents and keep whatever rents or profits might be left over after reasonable expenditures. And I did my darndest over the weekend to find out how that happened, and I just need a clarification on where this lease came from.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the city purchased several parcels of property in anticipation of developing the multimodal transportation center on the southwest quadrant of the Railroad Diamond in downtown Joliet. Part of the footprint of that project includes what's been called the Law Building, and I don't recall the address, but it's the first building south of the viaduct on Chicago Street on the east side. It's an old meatpacking place that used to do its business with the railroad when the railroads were still at ground level. Eventually, the rails were raised, and that became something else. And then, I don't know how long ago, but a gentleman by the name of Ray Matasevic purchased the building, and he redeveloped it top to bottom, did a great job. It's a really neat building on the inside. Because the city wanted to acquire it, Jim Haller and I met with Ray. We signed a contract to purchase it, but we did not need to demolish it immediately. Our plan was to keep the building up, use it for the construction office, for the various contractors and agencies that are involved in this project. And that includes IDOT, Metra, PACE, the BN, UP, Amtrak, and the city of Joliet. Mr. Matasevic was asked by me to stay in the building. He wanted to stay. He had a private detective agency that he operated out of the building, and he also leased it to a few lawyers who occupied part of the building. Part of the agreement in getting Mr. Matasevic to sign the sale and close on it quickly, using the funds that we had set aside for the downtown project, was for Ray to stay on as the building manager. Supervise, take care of, pay the utilities, plow the snow, do what building managers normally do. And in exchange for that, he would be entitled to keep whatever rent comes from the few offices that were rented in that building to a few lawyers who practice law in downtown Joliet. Unfortunately, Ray passed away last summer. His widow has continued on with his private detective agency in that building and has taken over the role as building manager. There have been some disputes between the building manager and a couple of the tenants. A few of the tenants moved out. A couple of them that are there still have a dispute, and it's an ongoing dispute that unfortunately I've not been able to resolve. There seems to be some disputes that are personality-driven, and I've not really dedicated the time to try to resolve the personality conflicts between the building manager and the tenants. I don't know who's right or who's wrong in any of that. I'd have to spend some time meeting with all of them in person to figure that out. The lease itself goes till the end of March of 2014, basically a year from now, and the intent was making sure the city wouldn't have to commit any staff or dollars to pay the utilities, shovel the snow, take care of changing light bulbs or any of the repairs. I think when we negotiated the deal with Mr. Matasevic, that was part of the enticement of getting that property under contract and getting it closed quickly. So it was intended to be something that would work very well, and I think had Mr. Matasevic lived longer, I think we would not have had this conversation, but unfortunately he passed away last summer while he was on vacation, and we've had a bit of a mess since then.
Mayor, Tom, did you say that he was to get all the rent money?
Yes.
Okay, because I got a copy of the lease as well, but it wasn't given to me by Mr. Hogg. It was in third party. I got it through email. And I was a little concerned about it, and I did discuss it with our city attorney. But, so I went back and I looked at some of the minutes from that March meeting, and it said we were to get the rent money. He was going to take well, I have the minutes in my briefcase, and I can read it back. Because I'm a little concerned about this, because it wasn't exactly what I voted on. I made the motion to approve this. Mr. Hugg stated that the city has actually produced a small cost savings by using one of the buildings as the construction headquarters and also collect rent from the lawyers currently occupying the offices. And city manager said there are several lawyers that are going to stay there for now, and he's promised that the city will be a good landlord to them. But I guess what's transpired now with the current tenant, that's not the case, that she wasn't giving us the checks. They were going directly to Mr. Matasevic.
No, actually, the original intent, going back to the beginning of the negotiation, was for Ray Matasevic's compensation to be whatever rent he could derive from that building as he had while he owned the building, and that would last for about 1.5 years or 2 years. And the intent there was making sure the limited staff that we have would not be required to take care of another building. As you know, it's difficult to take care of buildings, whether it's Union Station or the ballpark, fire stations, whatever it may be. It's costly, time-consuming, and we just don't have the staff to manage another building. So the intent here was for Ray to continue on as the building manager. He would keep the rent. In exchange for that, he'd pay all the bills, pay the taxes, pay whatever expense would be incurred in dealing with that building for about a 2-year period, because we really didn't know when we would need to bring the building down. Looking back, with all this controversy that has transpired, I probably would have been better off just emptying the building out, mothballing it, and not having to deal with this now. Now I have to deal with it, and I will set aside some time to deal with it. And really, it's a 1-year fix because the building will be vacated about 1 year from now anyway. Obviously, we've proceeded with phase 1 of the project. Phase 2, I think the contract's going to be advertised in a week or 2 for the second portion, and that project's moving along great. This has been the only little hitch in the problem here, and I truly believe it's because a couple of people just can't quite get along, and I need to play referee.
Tom, with all due respect, I don't agree with that. I have the memo which we voted on, 90-12. This was presented to the City Council on March 5th of 2012. Specifically, in this memo, I'm going to quote from it, it says, "The city is taking possession of the building subject to the existing lease with the law firm. The rental payments will be used to cover operating costs for the building and expenses incurred as part of the project." Now, I and I spoke with you several weeks ago when I received what we're referring to as a lease. Really, this is a contract. But this was entered or signed on April 13th, 2012, a month after we voted on the memo. And this was signed by Mayor Girani and Ray Matasevic. And in here is where Mr. Matasevic is told he's going to keep the entire rental payments. This was never shown to the council. I never saw it. I received it through a back channel recently. This contradicts what we voted on. And just so we're clear, because my law firm used to be tenants at that building, we're talking about potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in rental money, which has been given away to the Matasevic family, which was never approved by this council. So I think it's more than a hitch. There are other perks that have been given to Mr. Matasevic, which I also don't believe have been, it's not in the agreement, and I don't think it's ever been disclosed to the council. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he also is going to receive $85,000 from our money, not he, because he's no longer here, but his LLC will receive $85,000 of our money to tear the building down, and he's also going to be allowed to keep all the materials at the building, the bricks, the copper, the trim that was inside, which again, and I'm not a construction guy, but I believe that's several $100,000 going to him. And I'm concerned that none of this ever came to the city council. But as far as what we're dealing with today, there's two things I'd like to see done. And I don't know if I need to make a motion or how to proceed. Number one, I don't want any more money going to the Matasevic family. That's our building, it's our money. Whatever was signed in April, this wasn't shown to the council, and I don't believe that anyone had authority, any one individual had authority to give away several $100,000 of taxpayer money, which is what this in effect did. And secondly, I'd like an accounting of how much money the Matasevic people have collected since March when we voted on this, and I'd like our money back. We never authorized them to collect any of this. And if somebody thought that was the right thing to do, it should have been presented to the council. We should have discussed and voted on it, and that didn't happen. So, again, I don't know if I need a motion for that or if the
Well, I'm certainly not prepared to vote on it. This is the first I've heard about this, believe it or not, okay? And I'm not prepared to vote on anything. I would like Jeff to look at this to find out what exactly the conditions of that agreement is, and then report back to us. This is the first I've heard of it.
The one you signed or the one you voted on?
If they contradict, both of them.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I did have an opportunity because I was contacted by a council person or two about this transaction, and what I explained to those who contacted me is that about 1 year ago, what was brought to the mayor and city council was the sales contract under which the Matasevic family would convey 10 South Chicago Street to the city of Joliet for the multimodal project. And as a part of that contract, the council specifically authorized the formation of a lease agreement between the city and the Matasevics, basically explaining the transaction or setting up legally the transaction as Tom just explained it. In addition, the demolition component was also a part of that contract that was brought to the city council and set forth legally the transaction as Tom explained it. And that was all part of the consideration for the purchase. And it's pretty difficult to take a purchase, pull out that has various forms of consideration in it of interest to the seller that induces the seller to sell the property to the city and say, well, the purchase price is part of it, but these other things of value to the seller, being the post-conveyance lease back to the seller or the demolition contract to be undertaken by the seller, those were also things of value to the Matasevic family. All of those things played a role in getting the Matasevic family to accept the purchase price, the cash that we had to bring to the closing table. I imagine the deal could have been structured differently if the parties agreed that the purchase price could have went up and the Matasevics would have had no interest in the salvage value of the building or in the post-closing control and management and leasing of that property. It all could have been done that way. But I do want to emphasize that the purchase and sale agreement that was brought to the council did include all of these items. And I also do want to remind the council that this transaction was discussed at length in great detail in 2 executive sessions that I remember, long before it came to approval in open session. So as I wrote the agreement, I wrote the agreement, and again, you got to remember, I was not at the negotiation session with the Matasevics. As Tom explained, that was himself and Mr. Haller. I based my recollection of the business deal based on the lengthy discussions we had in closed session. That included the purchase price, that included the lease back, and that also included the demolition component. That's how I knew to put that in the purchase and sale agreement that was approved by the council last March.
Well, Jeff, what you're saying contradicts what's in the memo. It says here specifically where the rental payments are going to go, and it never says to Ray Matasevic.
Read that again.
Actually, it doesn't, Bob. It was,
that again.
It's crystal, what you read to me is crystal clear that we were going to balance this contract. We were going to get Ray to sign on the dotted line, and you were Ray's tenant, apparently. I'm
Not at the time, no.
Okay, no, not at the time, but you used to be.
Right.
So you know how it is to deal with Ray. And I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but Ray was a hard bargainer. And part of getting the transportation center going is acquiring parcels of property. When you're talking about people who have put a lot of money into it, Ray owed about $750,000, $800,000 on it at the time. You know, there are lots of things that go into trying to close a deal. I've closed hundreds of deals. I acquired 22 pieces of property across the street for Harrah's Casino. We gave away a lot of stuff in those deals. I mean, even to the point where I was going to commit staff to driving new Buicks from downtown Joliet out to the west side to a new site so Harrah's could close on it by the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, 1992. We did some goofy things, but you know what? We're motivated. We want to make deals. And when you sit and negotiate things, you're going to give a few things away that may, when you look back under the microscope in a nice setting like this, maybe it does look a little strange to people. But at the time, it got the deal done. The project's proceeding. It's a $52 million fully funded project. This is one little speck of it that needed to happen to make sure that we move forward so I could deliver the project on time at budget for IDOT that was giving us $32 million, the UP, the BN, PACE giving us $1.7 million. All these pieces had to fit in very neatly in a hurry, and that's what I did. Looking back, I know you and Councilman Hugg and maybe others don't agree with what I did. I thought I was up front with you saying that all this is going to balance. Whatever rents come in will go towards the operation of the building so we don't have to come out of pocket with city dollars to pay for changing light bulbs, shoveling snow, things like that. If Ray made a few extra bucks out of it, more power to him. If Ray lost his shirt on it, I don't think he'd be here asking you for more money because he lost his shirt on it. That's the reality of it. If we want to second guess it now, have at it. I'm here to, watch you second guess it. I'm confident I cut a great deal for the city of Joliet. It got the job done. In a year, we're probably going to have an empty building there, and we'll figure out what we're going to do with it once the project's all over. It may come down. It may stay up. I don't know what'll happen, and maybe we'll need the space for construction offices continuing on for the next couple of years. But if you want to launch an investigation into it, please do it. I've got a small file on it. I'll give it to Jeff. If you want somebody from the outside to look into it, because I understand there's some allegation of impropriety, please investigate me top to bottom. I don't have a problem with that.
I think the first thing I want to do, Bob, is get Krista what you're reading there and have her provide the rest of the council
Sure,
with
it's the memo.
copies.
Sure.
Well, yeah, but
I'm reading 90-12.
Okay, get it to
I got it
Krista.
right here.
Okay,
Okay.
make copies so the rest of it. Honestly, this is the first I've heard of this.
Okay.
I want to know what you're talking about, and then I think we can go from there.
Well, I heard about a month ago when I received the contract, which I guess superseded what we voted on.
It didn't, Bob. It didn't supersede. It's consistent with what you read. Now, if you want to have a debate about it, that's fine, but I'm just telling you what you read is
let me read it
100%
again.
accurate.
The rental payments will be used to cover operating costs for the building and expenses as incurred as part of the project. That is not
I would sign that.
consistent with
I would
this.
sign that statement again.
Well, it's not
That's
consistent.
exactly what I said.
It doesn't say the Matasevic family keeps the rent money.
I
Doesn't
didn't.
say
Those are
they
two
don't
different
either,
things.
though.
Well, then,
From what I'm
had we
hearing.
gotten it and then given it back to Ray, would that have put a little fairy dust on this and made it better?
No, it should have been disclosed to the council.
Well,
if
I
that
didn't
was the
disclose it.
intent.
I messed up.
And a contract that was signed a month later should also have been disclosed to the council.
Listen, you know how many of them I signed? I assume
yeah.
that those contracts, when they come from Tom and Jeff, are what we all agreed upon.
I assure you that
All right,
that's
well,
the...
you're saying that. I want to see what you're reading
Okay,
there, okay?
that's fine.
Okay.
Well, what I've noticed on that, Mayor, too, is that particular contract that everybody's referring to doesn't have a memo number on it. So that should have probably raised a red flag moving forward, that if there's no memo number, how could it be approved? With all due respect, Jeff and Tom, nobody's challenging or objecting to the overall project. We're objecting to the process by which this was signed without our approval. Inducements, let's talk about inducements. We, with eyes wide open, approved a $1.25 million purchase of a building that had $800,000 left on its mortgage. I think a $425,000, I'm sorry, inducement would induce anybody to leave. So I stand by what I've said and what Councilman Oker said. This was not done properly through us. It was not disclosed. The first time, Tom, you know that, the first time I saw this lease was Wednesday afternoon, after we talked, when you emailed it to me.
You asked for it, I emailed it.
Right.
Within
That was the first
an
time
hour.
I saw it.
Okay. Well,
I have
don't know
nothing
about
to hide on
anybody
this,
else here,
Larry.
but
I mean, like I said, everybody can come down to my computer now. We'll go through each document I have, piece by piece. You know, I've got a job to do. I've got a $52 million project to deliver on time, under budget. I'm going to do it. When we get sidetracked on issues like this, it does have the effect of slowing things down. And if you think it's worth spending time on this, I'll spend as much time as the council would like me to spend on it.
I think right now we need to get copies of what you're reading, so we're all, and then we can discuss this.
Can I just ask a question here?
Sure.
Tom, when you made this agreement with the LLC or Mr.
With
Metcalf,
Ray.
did that give him the full right to, for future to raise rents if this was a short-term agreement?
Yeah, actually, yes, it probably gave him, as building manager, to deal with it, but I think the reality is rents in downtown Joliet have their limitations. Ray couldn't, or Tammy at this point, really can't take what is now a $1,500 a month lease and turn it into a $3,000 a month lease. It's $1,500 a month from one tenant. I don't know what it is from the other tenant. And then Tammy has her own private detective agency office in there. It's a fairly limited thing. So whether this generates $100,000 worth of rent or not, I don't think it generates that much. I think it generates about $25,000 a year, maybe. We'll find out. I can ask her. The reality is there is a tax bill to pay on it because I don't think the assessor has declared it as tax exempt yet. And even if they do, it has leasehold interest that will have taxes that will be attaching to it. I think part of the problem is that there's a conflict between the tenant and the landlord in this case, and that's all playing out because the tenant knows some of you, so she calls you and gets you involved, and it results in us having conversations like this in public. And that's okay. If that's how we're going to handle this, that's fine. But my point is, can Tammy raise the rent? Yes. She probably can. Is she going to? I don't know, because I think the rents are very limited by the market itself. There's a lot of vacant office space in downtown Joliet, so I don't think she can go crazy as far as making hundreds of thousands or even more on renting that place for the next year.
But in hindsight, what Councilman Hugs or Oderkirk said then, if she's raising the rent, that's really taxpayer money that should have gone back to us had it not gone to this Mr. Masevic in the beginning.
I don't think she raised the rent.
No,
But that was part of the conflict.
The supposition is it's taxpayer money.
Mr. Mayor,
It's gonna come back to us, okay?
I mean, we could have collected the rent. I could have had Judy and the others in there sending a check over to us, okay, $1,500 a month, and then I would turn around and cut a check back to Ray or Tammy now for $1,500 a month to say, run the place for us as building manager.
Tom.
Lots of buildings have building managers.
In the standard agreement is 10% of the rent, not 100. I've never heard of 100%.
Bob, this isn't the standard agreement, though.
Right, because
I mean, where were
what we
you
did-
when this? I mean, ask these questions when this is coming forward.
Well,
You know-
Tom, what we did was clear away an $800,000 mortgage that they were paying.
Mm-hmm.
They're staying there rent-free, and they keep everything that's ours. All the rent money that should be coming to the city is going to them. I never would have voted for that agreement. And I don't think it's hindsight because I'm now seeing documents that were never presented with terms that were not listed in what we voted on.
Then
That's
we
the
would have
problem.
sent a $32 million paycheck back to the state of Illinois.
I don't follow. We're
Well,
talking about the building at 10
yeah.
South Chicago.
Yeah, part of the Transportation Center project
Right.
includes acquiring that building along with Mr., what was his name, across the street on Ottawa Street, that property. We've got one more piece we're trying to acquire. The part of this was accumulating all of that. Our commitment to IDOT as part of the $32 million grant was to do the land acquisition. So we got the two key pieces out of the way very early in the process. We still have one more to go. We are negotiating with the owner right now, and I'm sure you'll hear about it whenever we have an agreement. We don't have an agreement yet, but that was part of the deal with Ray, that was the entitlement or the inducement or, the little extra that made him interested in selling the property to us so I could report back to IDOT that, yes, we've secured all of the property, we're eligible to start receiving grant proceeds. That's it. It's not a standard deal where it's an existing office building and I'm going to hire somebody to go manage it. I wouldn't cut a deal like that in that case. This is very unusual. We acquired a gas station in downtown Joliet by giving the gentleman a job. That's how creative we get when we need to acquire. He looked at me and said, I'm 50 years old. I don't know what I'm going to do for a living. I only know how to run a gas station. I said, can you drive? You have a CDL, can you drive a truck? We'll give you a job as part of this if you'll sell us the property that we needed, what now has the Harris first parking deck on it. And looking back, people would say maybe he was overly generous. He gave him a job where he worked for 10 years and whatever. The reality is we got the job done. We brought a casino in that has generated probably about $300 million for the city, and we've done a few things with those bucks.
Right.
So that's why you really
Excuse
can't, you can't analyze these on a very microscopic basis and say, we're going to sit here and second guess this deal today because somebody's calling you and agitating it. I think you just need to let it play out. Let me try to make peace with the landlord and the tenant, and then I'll report back to you if it's that important to you.
I don't think it's fair to go on with this conversation, and none of us have what you have.
We're here.
Okay?
You
Well,
have it.
but nobody else does either. And I'm not going to, no, okay, fine. But I'm not going to read it now. I want a copy of this and that, okay? Then we can discuss it.
Right, and again, the issue is, I first saw this a few weeks ago. I mean,
Okay.
that's the heart of the issue, that this wasn't presented to the council initially. So I'm not withholding anything from the council.
No, you're not. But
That's
you're
my issue.
My point is you're discussing something that we don't have in front of us. That's my whole point. And I'd like to get that so we can have a discussion on
Fair
this, okay? Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second. Motion and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
What is that? Oh, that's your agenda? No. That's mine.